everyone, so today I'm going to show you how to make a season's greetings card, making 4 different scenes representing each of the 4 seasons: summer, autumn, winter, and spring. And we're going to use 3 stamp sets by Clearly Besotted that were just released this August. And those stamp sets are the Seen It Seasons stamp set, the Seasonal Sentiment stamp set, and then the All 4 Seasons stamp set. And the All 4 Seasons stamp set is the one that has these adorable little penguins. The Seen It Seasons stamp set is the one that has little backdrop. In this case, it's a backdrop of a summery ocean scene. And then the Seasonal Sentiments are going to be the stamp set that we use to stamp the sentiments on each of our scenes towards the end of the video. So let's get started with this little scene, and we are going to start by coloring in the water, and I will explain when we get to the next scene how I was able to stamp the little penguins in front of the scene without getting any black markings on them. So for the ocean, that I guess is already done, and I used some BG10 close to the shoreline, and then some B37 and B34 for the water itself. And then for the sand, I'm going to use E30 for the base of the sand. And then for the tree, we're going to use some E40s. And we're going to use the E40s for all the trees that we make in all 4 scenes. And then I just use some yellow Copic markers for the little sun that's peeking out behind the palm tree. I guess that could be either a little sun or maybe it's a little coconut hanging from the palm tree, however you want to interpret it, I guess. And the little penguins that I chose for this scene are the little penguin who is in an inner tube, and then the penguin who's carrying a surfboard. I just thought that they were adorable and that they would be perfect for this little scene. And the scene itself is only about 2.5 inches wide and 2 inches high. So each of the scenes that we make are going to have those dimensions. Actually, I guess it's more accurate to say it's not 2.5 inches, it's actually 2.6 inches to be exact wide, and then 2 inches exactly high. And then we are going to arrange all 4 of our little rectangles around an A2 size card base so that we have a nice little 1/8 of an inch border around each of the pieces, just so that it looks nice. And you'll see how that looks when we get towards the end of the video and we start assembling everything. So for the sand, I'm just using E30, E31, E34, some E35. This E37 here was actually a mistake. I think I meant to pick up an E35, but it's okay. It's still brown enough and it'll blend in just fine with our scene. And I'm just working on making some little indentations in the sand by adding some little darker streaks of shading here and there to make it look like maybe there's some little drifts of sand, maybe some little mounds of sand that are kind of, I don't know, like kind of pebbly looking. Is that the right way to say it? And then for our little penguin out in the water, we are going to put him in a little red inner tube. So the colors that I tried to use in the summer and spring scenes, I tried to use some really bright, cheery Copic colors. And then for our fall and winter scenes, I tried to use some more muted shades there, just to give a nice contrast between the seasons or among the seasons. And for all the penguins, I'm going to color them the same exact way. That's with a C5, a C7, and a C3 marker for the black part. And then for the little shadows on the white parts of the penguin, I'm just going to use a C3 and then a C0 or a C00 to blend it into the white. And I find with these scenes that I really like that the penguins have a lot of white in their body, because it's just nice to have a pop of white in a scene that's otherwise completely colored in. It kind of gives your eyes, I think, a chance to rest, and it also adds kind of like a pop of, not a pop of color, a pop of the absence of color into your scenes. I just think it's a pretty look. I like to add at least one white space on all of my cards because I do tend to color pretty heavily and I don't leave a lot of white space. So, all right, it looks like we are just about done with our little summer scene. I'm just gonna add some highlights on the little penguins and on the beach ball, just to make it look like they're shining in the sun and to reinforce that for some of the objects that they're rounded. The shading or the highlighting helps with that. And then I'm just gonna peel away the tape, and then I just cut that with my paper trimmer to get it to be 2 inches high by 2.6 inches wide. Now we're gonna work on the fall scene. So here I stamped the little penguin and then I masked him. And then once I masked him, that's when I stamped the scene. And that's how you avoid getting any marks on our little penguin in the leaves. So we'll see that again 2 more times in the spring and summer scene if it just went too quickly for you. So for this scene, we are going to color in the ground with a base of E42. And then our tree is going to have a base of E43. And then we're going to use some really, really nice, just dull muted shades for the rest of the scene. I think these are going to be some of my favorites for the autumn. So for the sky, we're going to use BG90, and then we're going to add some shading in with a BG93 later. I think that this combination is excellent for fall skies. It's just a really, really nice, like greenish gray color, and it just kind of helps reinforce that it's a really cloudy, kind of cool day, like just a perfect kind of fall day. And then for the shading on the fence, we're going to use some warm grays. And the shading on the fence that is in the picture of the photograph, that is at the beginning of this video and then it'll be again at the end of the video, that I colored in that fence with some cool gray. So if you want to compare and contrast the differences, you can just compare the card that we make in this video with the card that's shown at the end of the video, which is the sampler card that I had made first before I decided to make a video for this card. For the little leaves, we're going to use for the orange Y15 and Y18. For the red are 56 and 59. For the green, YG95 and 99. And then for the yellow, Y13 and Y18. And then for the base of the little pile of leaves, that was Y21. And then we're going to shade the edges of the little pile of leaves with Y27, E99, and then Y24. And that's going to give us a really, really pretty fall, fall-colored pile of leaves for our little penguin to be frolicking in. For the pumpkin, I did the base in Y21, and then the dark shading around the edges of the ridges in the pumpkin are YR18, and then our midtone is YR15, and then I'm just going to reinforce the darker shading with YR27. The little nose on the penguin, I used YR09, and I'm going to use that same color for all of the penguins in all of our scenes. I thought that because we're using different colors in each of the different scenes, that it would be good to make sure that the penguins themselves, that their coloring stayed consistent. So that's why for all the penguins, I colored them in the exact same way, just so that there's some symmetry among the scenes to kind of tie the whole card together once we're done. All right, for the tree, I'm just adding some bark by just adding in little stripes of E49 and E47, which are our darkest E colors. And that's it. So now I'm going to cut it down to 2.6 inches wide by 2 inches high, and then I'm going to add some little shadows along the bottom of the pumpkin. And then at this point, I realized that I didn't shade in my ground or my sky, so I'm just fixing that. And whoops, there went a little cap, a marker cap there. And for the shading, I'm just using some E43 here, and then a little bit of BG93 along the edges of the scene on top, and then I'll just blend that together with my BG90, leaving the center pretty light. So we have a really nice, pretty fall scene that we've created here. Now I'm going to put some highlights on the pumpkin, and little dots, little dot highlights on the leaves. And that's about it. So now we're done with fall and we are ready to move on to winter. So I'm gonna put my little paper down, and that paper is half of an A2 size card. And then I stamp my penguin, masked him, and then I'm going to stamp the scene over him, peel off the masking paper, and then we have a perfect little scene with no markings on the penguin. So the reason that I stamp the scenes on a larger piece of paper than what the actual scene is going to be is just so that I had some freedom to choose where I was going to place my scene after I stamp my little focal images, because it's kind of hard to figure all of that out ahead of time if you only have the exact area of the scene to stamp on. So I was like, this way I'll give myself some latitude. I'll just stamp the little penguin wherever I want, and then I'll place the scene on top of him wherever I think it looks best, and I can just cut off the rest. And then also by doing this, it allowed me to tape down the paper, which then makes it easier for me to film so the paper's not moving around all over the screen. For the sky here, I use BG10. And then for the little mounds of snow, we're going to put some shading in with a BV31 to make it look nice and chilly. And then reinforce that chilliness with some more BG10 along the snowbank. And a little B000 as well, which is another good color for shading in the winter to make images and the ground appear chilly and cold. I even added a little B60, which is a nice lavender color, to the shading on the little snow mounds. And then for the scarf on the snowman, we're going to use BV00, BV02, and BV04, which happens to be my favorite purple combination right now. And then for some shading on the pumpkin, we're going to give him shading with B000 on the left side. And then we'll move on to the penguin. We'll color in his hat with some BG45 and 49, and then the top of his hat we'll do with BG93 and 96. For the other side of the snowman, I just shaded it in with some C00, and then I'm just gonna color in the black parts of my penguin the same way that we did with the other little penguins, adding some shading under his arms and on the sides of his body. And then we're gonna give some polka dots to the hat and to the scarf. And then we're just gonna sprinkle snow all over the screen after we add our little shadows underneath the snowman and the little penguin. And I'm just kind of dotting my pen all over the scene. I made some large dots, and then most of the dots are tiny little dots. And I'm being sure to make sure that I go over the dark part of the tree just so that the snow stands out more so you can see. And then that scene's done. I cut it down, same size as the others. And now we move on to spring, and I just love this little penguin with the little chickies like sitting on his head and next to his body. It's just so cute. And we're gonna stamp on our background, which are some pretty spring flowers and some pretty rolling hills. And then we're gonna fill in our tree, same way we did with the other trees, E43 for the base, then some E44 for midtone, and then we'll shade it all in with some E49 as well. And then I'm just blending all that together so that it looks nice and finished. Even adding some E49 for some really, really dark shading in some areas. And then once we finish with that, we can move on to the sky. And we're going to add in a layer of B000, which is a really pretty color for any sky. Actually, I like it for summer skies, winter skies, and spring skies, all the same. But on this card, I think I'm only using this color scheme on spring, and then maybe I used a little bit of it on summer as well. And then I'm using B01 as my darker color to shade in the sides of the sky. For the rolling hills, we're going to use YG11, YG13, and YG17, which are some really, really nice, bright yellow-green colors. And then we're going to color in our little chickies with a Y13 and then add some shading with Y18. The nose and the feet are going to be YR04 and YR07. And then we're going to color in our penguin just like we colored in all the penguins before him in this video with some C5 and C7. And then the edges of his body and the little shadows under his arm with some C3 and then C00 to blend it out. For the flowers, we're going to use RV21 and RV23 for the flowers that are in the back, or the flowers that are on the tree. And then we're going to use some darker RV colors on the flowers that are in the front. And this will help reinforce the fact that the flowers next to the penguin are closer to us than the flowers that are on the tree, because images that are closer to us are going to have brighter and darker colors. So that's the reason why I'm coloring in the flowers next to the penguin differently than I am coloring in the flowers on the tree. So for the flowers I'm coloring now, I used RV25 for the base, and then we're going to put some shading in with RV29. And then just kind of dot in the RV25. And then go over it all with RV23 just to blend things out. And I think I misspoke. I think the base of my flowers in the front was RV23, and then 29 for the shading and 25 for the midtone. Now I'm just adding some shading to the hills with my YG13, blending it out with the YG11. And this color combination in particular, I really like it for the spring. I think it's a better choice than the YG 01, 03, 07 series because it's just a little bit less yellow than the YG 0 series. So if you're looking for something that's more closer to a kind of pure green, the YG 10 and above are great for that. Okay, so now we're going to stamp on our sentiments. So we put spring in the air for spring, snow day hip hooray for winter, fun in the sun for summer. And then the only one for autumn that we have in the stamp set is this one that says autumn leaves and pumpkins, please. And it was a little bit big for our little 2-inch scene, but I made it work. And then I'm going to pop up all of those little panels on one layer of foam tape. And I'm going to cover the entire back of them just to make sure that they stay nice and popped up on top of our card base. And then I'm going to arrange them. So I'm going to arrange them so we have summer and spring on a diagonal to each other because those are the bright colors, and then we'll have winter and autumn also on a diagonal. So this way it'll help balance out the cards so that we have the bright colors diagonal and then the dull colors diagonal. If we had 2 brights on top and 2 dulls on the bottom, it would look unbalanced. So this technique helped me to balance things out, and that's why I kind of started with summer and then going to fall and then to winter and then to spring. And then to arrange them to make sure I got everything perfectly, I just kind of kept them all on the card as I was placing them to make sure that I got my borders right. And then I added a season's greetings sentiment right on top in the center. And then we're going to add all this to a fog colored card base, which I think is a nice little detail for this card. And that's it. So that's our card for today. These are stamps by Clearly Besotted. They're adorable. I think there are lots of ways that you could use these scene cards and all the little penguins. Although there were lots more penguins that I didn't get to use on these cards that would also be great in scenes. And there are lots of great sentiments on the sentiment stamp set. So that's all I have for now. If you're interested in these stamp sets, check out my Clearly Besotted haul video that I posted a couple of days ago, and that'll give you more information about the products. Have a great day, everyone, and I will see you again soon in the next video.